The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Hello, listeners! I'm so grateful for the listener interest over the last few years, and I want to keep this podcast inspiring to you with my amazing goddess guests and to amplify the voice of the divine feminine in the world today. This podcast takes time, effort, and resources to share with you every few weeks. I have an ask of you. One of the ways to support the Oracle of Luna podcast is to become a subscriber to premium and bonus material. Each of the podcast episodes have 2 links at the bottom. It's quick and easy, should probably take you 1 minute, and for as little as $3 a month, you can support the show and become a subscriber. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot. Thank you, and blessed be. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I'm excited to chat with Claire Casely. Claire is a fairy whisperer and the host of the Fairy Whispering podcast, and she is also a fairy expert and artist. Claire is dedicated to facilitating a space for those who want to foster a connection to the fairies. Claire's research and commitment helps to preserve the old ways and the wild places where fairies reside. Claire lives in the UK. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, Bridget. Thanks for having me on. It's a real honor
Hi.
to be on your podcast.
Yes, welcome. I'm excited to chat with you and learn about what you do. How's your day been?
It's been really busy, actually. The roads, it's really wet here and the roads are a bit flooded. But I've been working on some projects and driving children around to various places.
Yay. All right. Well, if you're ready, I'd like to get rolling. How's that?
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about how your journey began with the fairies? How did your interest and just curiosity, I guess, with the fairies begin?
So it began in childhood, although I didn't associate it with fairies at that time, but I loved playing outside. I'm an outdoors girl, and I just felt a connection to, I always felt there was something more, that there was something unseen. And I mean, I loved fairy stories as a child. I loved drawing fairies. I'm an artist. But I didn't really open up onto my spiritual path and connect with fairies until my 20s. So I was quite a late bloomer with that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had an experience. I had a few experiences starting in my 20s, but one that stands out for me was in 1999, and I was 26 years old. I was staying at a friend's house in Cornwall, and in the middle of the night, I heard an angelic choir coming from the nearby moorland, Bodmin Moor. And I looked everywhere around the house, couldn't find a source for it, couldn't explain it. And it's only in the last few years, since 2016, I really started investigating and writing and researching fairies more in a more dedicated way. And since then, discovered there's lots of folklore about the Pixies, which are the fairies in the part of the world that I live in the southwest of England,
Mm.
and finding that they live in the areas that I was hearing the music coming from, and there's lots of folklore about them there.
Hmm.
So that was really interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And being in the UK or England area, it's such a magical and quaint place. I can just feel their presence. I've been there. I've been to the UK a couple times and I felt their presence in the countryside.
Mm.
But as a fairy whisperer now, what do you do? What does being a fairy whisperer entail?
Okay, so um, it's something that a friend recognized me actually a few years ago. And she said, Claire, what you're doing is you're fairy whispering because I was out in nature, and I was noticing faces and forms in nature
Mm,
and connecting with nature through meditation and connecting with the fairies in that way. And so it's a way, it's a process of connecting with the unseen world of fairies using all of the senses, employing various methods like you can use your creativity, you can use natural mindfulness, geomancy, ritual as a way of opening up the senses, the psychic senses, and connecting with the fairy realm and the fairies.
sounds like there's an invocation, like you're opening the door, you're invoking them.
Yes, it is. It's a way really important for connecting with fairies is opening the heart, having an open heart. Fairies are very attracted to children for that reason, because children have an open heart and they don't have any barriers to what they're seeing. So it's important for us to get back to that, try and get back to that state of being where we're relaxed, open-hearted, and just open to receiving these experiences and connections with the fairies.
Being a nature person, is there a difference between nature spirits and fairies, or is there crossover, or can they be the same, or offshoots of a nature spirit? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, different, they're just different names for the same thing.
Yeah.
I use the overall umbrella of fairy. So fairy, the old spelling is Fairie, and
Yeah.
that means the place that fairies dwell in. So I speak to people on my podcast about all sorts of unusual experiences, mostly what we term as fairy experiences, but also Sasquatch, cryptids, lights, unusual lights and orbs. And yeah, so I put that all under the same umbrella. So nature, spirit, mentals. For me, I say, I put under fairies.
Yeah, I've been out in the woods, particularly a lot in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, and we have a big heritage of Sasquatch and Bigfoot and stories and folklore. And I actually think I saw one, but just out of the corner of my eye. It's always been kind of like, not really hey, I'm a Sasquatch and they're standing right there. It's always like at the corner of my eye and it's a fleeting feeling. Mm.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if that's sort of the feeling that you get when you encounter a fairy. Maybe you can't quite understand or comprehend because they're from a different realm.
Mm. Yeah, corner of the eye phenomena is a really common way to see these otherworldly beings, because at the side of our eyes we have more more of a concentration of rods and cones, and more of an ability, therefore, to see through into another light spectrum. It's all about the different light spectrums that we can see as humans, and there's many light spectrums that we are invisible to us just because our eyes don't have the capability to see through them. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, interesting. Very
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
there's something about our physicality that is not cannot comprehend or see or hear maybe those from a
yeah.
different realm.
I think we've shut that down because of our modern lives and modern ways of living and disconnection. Excuse me, our disconnection from the land.
And
And so
so
we've lost that too.
what are some of the mythology or folklore around fairies? I know they've been around a long, long time in Europe and England, Ireland, France,
Mm.
different parts of Europe. There's so much folklore surrounding fairies, but are they just
Oh,
really metaphysical beings?
I think they are. I think that they are beings that live in a different dimension to us, and they can make themselves visible to us if they wish to, or if people have the ability to see them, or if, conditions are right. For example, if there's ley lines in the area, or it's a particular power spot in the landscape, places near water, those sorts of areas kind of amplify the potential of being able to see into that realm. So, for example, people see fairies appear from rocks in places like Iceland, and also in this part of the world as well. People have seen fairies appearing from rocks and they walk back in to the rocks. So they have this non-corporeal way of dissolving and going through solid objects.
Mm,
But then they can appear to sometimes they can appear to be very solid, a
mm,
bit like the Sasquatch as well, that can
hmm.
be, very real, very solid, but then just vanish.
So they're shapeshifters.
They're shapeshifters. Yeah, fairies can change into different animals. In folklore, there's stories of fairies turning into rabbits, um, hedgehogs, um, crows, frogs, anything, any of these little small animals are associated with fairies.
I wonder what
Mm.
they want to communicate with us, or if there is an interest in communicating with us.
I think some of them do. I think some of them that we see, um, we see them for a reason. Sometimes it's by accident, but I believe the message is about protecting the environment and especially the places that they inhabit, so the wild places which are very fragile.
Yes.
And we are encroaching upon those places more and more. And I think, therefore, we're starting to encounter these beings more and more. And I think they want us to know that we need to really consider our actions and our impact, not just on our own habitats, but theirs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yes. Especially with cell phones. There's that energetic, the 5G and that kind of
Mm.
energetic. I think that's like a powerful, I'm not sure how to even put it, but it's like a powerful negative energy on the natural world and on
Yes.
our psyches, and it's
Hmm.
damaging in so many ways that we can't even see or
Mm.
perceive. And so I feel like maybe the fairies or Sasquatch or the metaphysical beings and the nature spirits are really they're having a hard time with it, maybe.
Yeah, and I think we are as well because it's impacting on our ability to relax, switch
Yeah.
off, and also, sense into the natural atmosphere of a place. There's so much electromagnetic pollution in built-up areas
Yeah.
that it's difficult to find a place where we can just connect with the natural vibrations of the earth.
And
That's
to have the sensitivity to connect.
Yes. Yeah. So being in nature. going out into the wilds is a way that we can reclaim the natural abilities that we have to see these beings and connect with them. Um, and it's also good for us, of course.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Are you dedicated to any particular type of fairy?
Yeah, I've been writing a book, researching and writing a book for a few years now
Oh,
about the Pixies.
oh,
I'm
okay.
just completing this book at the moment. The Pixies, as I've just said, they are the fairies that are associated with the part of the world that I'm in, which is the southwest of England. So that's Cornwall, Devon, and Somerset. In Cornwall, they're called the Piskies and Pixies. And so, yeah, I've got a book that'll be coming out next year, and
Oh, that's exciting. What's the title?
it's called The Heart of Pixieland.
Oh, that's so cool. I can't wait to read
Yeah.
it.
Well, I wanted to write something that comes from the heart rather than just, factual. And so I've included my experiences and viewpoints on the Pixies, as well as a lot of research and information from folklorists. Um, yeah, so I'm really excited about that and seeing where that goes. I'm also going to create some illustrations for it because I'm an artist as well.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. I can't wait to see that. I was just looking the other day about, I think it's the Cottingley fairy photos. Do you have,
Mm,
that's a really interesting topic. And maybe we don't have time to talk about it, but were those two little girls took the
yeah.
photos and they're still considered sort of a mystery, right? I mean, it's not really solved whether they're actually real, but there have been several
Mm.
studies and photographic analysis about these photos, but they are determined to be real. What's your take on that?
Well, I've just put a plug here for a friend's book. So Dr. Simon Young, he manages the Fairy Investigation Society. Anyone can join if you're fascinated with fairies. He's recently written a book alongside other researchers about the Cottingley fairies. My take on it is I do believe that these beings can be captured on film and on audio equipment as well, because I've had experience of that and I've spoken to people that have captured fairies on film. Very convinced, excuse me, very convincing videos
Hmm.
and images and audio.
They must have some pretty sophisticated technology or high-end cameras.
Well, no, this is I captured an image on just on my cell phone.
Really? You obviously spent a lot of time out in nature and preserving the old ways of and the folklore around the fairies. You're also a wonderful host of the Fairy Whispering podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast show and the type of guests you have on it?
Yeah, I absolutely love my podcast. I started it a couple of years ago because I had a lifelong interest in the supernatural, obviously focus on fairies, and I was meeting more and more people that had had fairy experiences, and I've had fairy experiences. So I thought, why not create a podcast about it?
Sure.
So it's also a way I've found of reconnecting people with the enchantment and enchantment within themselves.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
one of my listeners said to me, "It feels, Claire, as if your show is a way of is drawing in the fairies."
Oh,
So creating, so it's like I create a magical space.
absolutely. I was just going to say
Yeah,
that. It's a beautiful
yeah,
space and where people can
yeah.
just these the magic and the enchantment of fairies.
Yeah, and I really feel it's important that people have validation, people are believed. for centuries, people that have had any supernatural experience or fairy experience, just look at the literature, people have been derided, um, mocked
Yeah.
when they've said that they've had these experiences. So my show is a safe space for people to come, share their experience, and we talk about it. And it's just really, I just find it a really beautiful process.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
validating.
yeah, it's very validating and just really fascinating as well. It's amazing the people I've spoken to about all sorts of experiences. Um, Yeah, so I talk to people about the classic fairies, as I said, about Bigfoot or other unexplained experiences like lights, some people might call fairy lights.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I'm doing, I see through the lens of fairies. Another researcher who's into cryptids or UFOs or ghosts might look at it in that particular way.
Yeah.
But my approach is talking to people about fairy experiences and researching those. And it's amazing how much of the folklore lines up with people's experiences as well.
Mm. That's
Mm.
fascinating. And there's so the the land and the stone circles and the ley lines create that are in the UK are just I feel like energetically empowering for people, and I can just sense the fairies there myself. But how can we connect if we're not in the UK? I mean, what if we're in the desert or in the city? Is there a way to connect with fairies, wherever we live
Uh,
or?
yeah, fairies are a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, I speak to people from all over the world. Um, so in some countries, they might not call them fairies, there are different names for them, but actually the same kind of beings. Um, but there's many types of them.
Yeah.
So the best way to connect with fairies is obviously going out into nature.
But what if we're in the city? What if we're
But
urban?
if if you have a garden, that's
Okay.
another way of connecting. Going to a local park, or you can, excuse me, grow plants or herbs on your windowsill. Or
Mm-hmm.
I have some meditations. Actually, meditation, and there's many meditations out there. Meditation is a good way to get into that space where we can be receptive to receiving messages from the fairies. So I had a period of quite intense contact with the fairies during 2019 when I was developing my psychic senses. So I was doing a clairvoyant course. And
Mm-hmm.
this was just sat in my bedroom at home, and I meditated every morning and journaled about those meditations. And the more that I did this, the more interesting information and experiences I had coming from those meditations. So
Mm-hmm.
that can be anywhere, someone
Yeah.
in the city, at home can do that.
Yeah.
Um,
So as we're getting closer to the winter solstice and Christmas and Yule, the season of
mm,
Yule, how can we invite or connect with fairies at this magical season? I always think of snow fairies or Narnia and some of the beautiful
oh,
stories of Dickens and just connecting with fairy beings. Can you talk a little bit
yeah.
about that?
Yeah, so the old tradition of bringing in evergreens into the home at Christmas, so ivy, holly, mistletoe, um,
Mhm.
it was believed that the fairies would come into the home with those
Oh,
evergreens.
okay.
And because it was that time of year, for some reason, they'd be on best behavior over that period. But it was really important to remove all of that greenery from your home before the 12th night, which is around the 6th of January.
Otherwise, what happens?
Otherwise, they'd cause mischief in your home for the rest of the
Um,
year, and they'd be very difficult to get rid of. So at
but
Christmas time, it's a really lovely time to connect with the fairies. And you could create a fairy altar, which is just basically a table or a space on a shelf that is dedicated to the fairies. So you could have a fairy ornament, some holly or ivy, and some crystals, maybe a candle, and some offerings that you can offer the fairies are coins, water, milk and honey, cake and butter, and they like alcohol as well.
yes,
So,
especially whiskey, right?
yeah, so or cider. We have cider in the UK. Do you have that in the
Oh
US?
yeah, sure. Hard cider, we've got
Ci-
that.
Cider mead, which is was traditionally brewed by monks. It's a type of fortified wine that's made with honey.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite strong.
That reminds me of Friar Tuck in Robin Hood.
Yeah, yeah. So fairies love mead or beer. Um, and you can protect that space. You can, so it's important when working with fairies in set or any sort of invisible beings to set some boundaries with them and say, fairies, you're welcome into my home over this Christmas period, but I'm only welcoming fairies that have good intentions.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can protect the space with some blue light. For some reason, I associate blue light with the fairies. And that's a nice protective light to imagine that you're decorating your space with so that there's no mischief
Yes.
over Christmas.
Life
Yeah,
is weird enough without mischief from
it
the
is.
fairies.
Yeah.
What are some of your upcoming plans for the future? Do you have any new TV or film projects or events? We know that you've got a new
Um,
book coming out, which is exciting.
yeah. So I recently appeared in a film um, with a film crew from it's Subjective Movies, a production company that's based in Colorado, and they came over to the UK in October, and they spoke to various fairy experts, including me. I took them up to Dartmoor, which is in Devon, and took them to some pixie places.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so that's coming out next year.
What's the title of that so our listeners can know about it?
It's called Fae Folk, A Search for Connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I've got some other projects that I can't talk about at the moment. But yeah, I've got some other things coming up next year,
Oh,
developing
exciting.
various, various spring work. And I'm going to be, yeah, I usually go to various fairy events as well and
Yeah,
talk.
I was
So
just gonna say there's a lot of fairy festivals and Christmas or Yule events and festivities. I'm sure you're involved in all that.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. So lastly, for our listeners, do you have a website or blog or social media that people can learn more about you and your fairy whispering and all your offerings?
Yeah, so my website is thefairywhispering.com. Facebook is Fairy Whispering Podcast, Instagram the same, and YouTube Fairy Whispering Podcast. So all very straightforward. And if people want to guest on the show and or contact me about any fairy experiences that they've had, they can email me Claire at thefairywhispering.com.
Perfect. Well, that is so amazing. I really, really thank you so much for your expertise and dedication to fairy connection and your beautiful sensitivity to their presence in our world, wherever we live. So thank you so much for being on the show, Claire.
Thank you, Bridget. It's been really wonderful to speak to you today.
Yeah. And also thank you to all our listeners. And at the time of when this podcast will be aired, it will probably be close to the winter solstice or the beginning of Yule. So Merry Yule to everyone and happy holidays. So that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up here and blessed be. And thanks again, Claire.
Thank you, Bridget. Bye. And bye to all the listeners too.
All right, blessed be. Bye bye.
Bye.